Back in the shop. It's another Sunday. Give you guys an update on what I've got done so far to the ditch pigs since the last video. We've made some pretty good progress. Today is just going to be a lot of welding and kind of finalizing those pieces. We're almost to a point where we can pull the engine back out and do all the final work to it before it goes back in for the last time. So we're in a pretty good position right now. So under here was one of the biggest obstacles, but we got it figured out pretty easily. So here's our custom fitting. This adapts the 3-bolt flange from the BMW transmission to the typical universal joint on the GMC drive shaft and output yoke. This worked out really well and required little to no modifications to the rest of the drive line, and we're connected from the transmission to the diff. The next thing we got sorted out was the shifter, and it's all in, it's fabbed up, it's working. The original shifter location brought it to about somewhere here in the cab. I was able to shorten the selector rod and then shorten up this bracket. Right now everything's only tacked in place, so today we're going to get on welding all that together so it's finalized and strong. Scotty took this panel home and remade us a new one. All we'll have to do is cut a hole in it for the shifter. It looks pretty sharp. I went and pulled the stock exhaust manifold off of another car I had with the same engine. This car. It fits much better than the headers that we got. Only spot I'm going to need is I'm going to have to put a little bit of a notch here in the frame, so I'm going to get that done today as well. Then this is all sorted out. The exhaust from there will be pretty straightforward. This is a 2-into-1 style cast manifold, which is pretty neat. So I'm going to see if I can utilize that and actually run a true dual exhaust in some kind of form or another. So today I'm just going to do a bunch of welding, get these pieces finalized. I don't even know if I'll put them back in at this point. I'll test fit them, and then I'll probably just leave them out so we can take the engine out.
First step is to remove the modified pieces from the transmission. It is glorious having this giant hole in the floor and not having to be a contortionist to remove this stuff. In order to remove the output yoke from the transmission, I had to drop the hanger bearing to release the drive shaft. With the drive shaft out, the yoke is also easily removed from the glorious hole inside the cab.
So the only piece that couldn't be made by myself or Pops was this fitting here. This is kind of a drive shaft adapter that gets us from the BMW transmission to the GMC Chevy drive shaft. So a friend of mine got a buddy of his who has a machine shop to set us up. So I really appreciate it. R&R. What they did is, this is the original output yoke of the 4-speed transmission that came out of the Chev. They opened it up on the inside to fit the inside flange of the BMW drive shaft inside. They press fit it. All I need to do is weld it up. So they left me with more than enough meat that I can weld it up in here. And then they even machined a groove into it so I could fill this all with weld. So I'm going to have to preheat this thing up. It's all cast steel, so I'm going to have to preheat it up before I weld it, and then kind of let it gradually, very gradually cool down. I'm not too worried about doing it myself because this isn't a high horsepower engine. It's not going to see a lot of abuse. The press fit should also help. So I'm pretty comfortable with the way that it's going to work out. That's a pretty neat piece. And then the second piece I was able to handle myself. This is the shifter assembly for the BMW transmission. I had to shorten up this rod. So this was the selector rod. I basically cut it down from almost 8 inches down to about 1.5 inches. That moved the shifter way forward. And then I just had to trim down this assembly. I've got it all tacked up for now, so I'm going to weld this up as well, and then it's good to go in. Eventually I'll probably be hacking this off here and we'll make a custom shifter. I'd still like to keep our big old crazy shifter or something very similar. So This will just be a series of tack welds. It's pretty thin metal. I'll put it back on to see how it feels. If it needs more reinforcement, I might beef it up a little bit more.
I had to pony up some money and buy a MAP gas torch to preheat the piece with. I just wasn't feeling it with my little propane torch. I spent a good 15 minutes preheating before running the first bead, then hit it with heat again before welding it on the other side. I didn't have anything that retains heat very well, so I blanketed the piece in some old welding gloves and leathers, commonly referred to as the gloving. This slows down the cooling time and reduces the chances of the welds cracking. With the output yoke done, I got to weld the shifter assembly and selector rod. This is pretty straightforward, just having to take enough care not to blow through the thin sheet metal bracket.
So I got the shifter completed, shifter assemblies complete. Feels really good. We got all the gears, including reverse. This is actually surprisingly pretty tight. I think I'm gonna have to put some grease in here. And then there's rubber bushings in here and in here. I think I might try and replace those with some solid, maybe some brass sleeves or bushings, just for added longevity. But works really well. So I do gotta adjust the shifter handle itself right now. That's gonna drive us right into the seat. So I want to do something, I want to have the big shifter back in here, whether it's the same one or we build another one similar to it, but I want that big shifter in there. So
After a couple days in the gloving, I was able to get back into the shop and pull our yoke out and give it a rigorous inspection.
is this the world's first BMW transmission to 50s Chevy 1-ton drivetrain coupling? That'd be pretty cool. I don't think I've been the world's first anything, but it's good to go. The welds turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I had to cool it down in a series of gloves and welding leathers because I don't have anything insulated to help retain the heat for a long period of time. But like I said, I'm pretty confident that it's going to do the job. That's a big ticket, man. For some reason, I am strangely excited about this piece right here. So that's where we're going to wrap this video up. Couple of really big items knocked off the list, the shifter and the drive shaft. That was two really big items. I wasn't sure how it was going to work out, but they worked out really well. So we're just about at a point where we can pull the engine back out. The last thing we need to do is the throttle linkage. So that'll probably be a next video type thing. We're going to have to drill a new hole in the floor pan and then either modify the original gas pedal or build a new one. We'll figure out what's going on with that. Once that's complete, then I'll be comfortable enough to pull the engine out. We can do all the final welding. I can do the clutch cylinder. So this transmission's got a hydraulic clutch. I've got a couple ideas, but I think we'll be able to make something work with the factory clutch pedal. And then a couple things for the wiring. I want to be able to mount the starter button. So the starter's button's going to stay on the floor as it was originally, but it's going to be an electronic button now because the starter is different. So that stuff can all be done with the engine out. The cross member can be welded back up and ready for the engine to go back in. So we're getting close. I'd like to get all this stuff done before I get to the gas tank. There's a couple more things I still need to get for the gas tank, but we can get it running without the new gas tank in. So that's where we're at. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.